My ex-wife and her lawyer boyfriend took $15 million from me. They kicked me out of my own home, seized my accounts, and left me for dead. They thought I was just a clueless old man. But I went to the bank with nothing but my grandpa's old paper card from 1948. The manager went pale. He whispered, "Mr. Carter, this account has been active since 1948. What I saw on that screen, it left me frozen. My ex-wife is about to find out what broke really means. Before I tell you what happens next, hit that like button and subscribe and tell me in the comments what city you're watching from. You won't want to miss the end of this." The fluorescent lights of the 7-Eleven hummed, buzzing right inside my skull. It was 9 p.m. on a Tuesday. I am 70 years old. I shouldn't be here. I should be in my study at my home on Lake Travis sipping a whiskey looking at the water. Instead, I was standing in aisle 3 holding a single can of Campbell's chunky soup, chicken noodle. It felt heavy in my hand. I brought the soup and a small loaf of white bread to the counter. The kid behind the register didn't look up from his phone. "That'll be 604, he mumbled. I pulled out my wallet. It felt thin. Empty. I slid my last debit card, the one the court had granted me, into the reader. The machine beeped. A loud, angry beep. "Declined," the kid said, not looking up. "Insufficient funds." My face burned. I could feel the heat rising up my neck. I don't understand," I stammered. "There should be money in there. Can you run it again?" He sighed, annoyed, and ran it again. Beep. "Declined. Insufficient funds. You got cash, old man. Old man." The words hit me harder than the beep. I am an old man. And I am broke. This wasn't just an embarrassment. This was the final nail in the coffin. This was the ultimate humiliation. You see, 6 months ago, I was Ben Carter. I wasn't just old man. I was the Ben Carter who had spent 40 years building one of the most successful property development firms in Austin. I turned dirt lots into high-rises. I built communities. My portfolio, my houses, my apartment complexes, my stocks was worth north of $15 million. Then Cynthia, my wife of 45 years, decided she wanted a different life. And her new lawyer boyfriend, Rick Shaw, knew exactly how to give it to her. I remember sitting in Rick's polished mahogany office just 6 months ago. Rick was also my son Matthew's boss. I trusted him. "Ben," he'd said, his voice smooth as silk, "we need to protect your assets from estate taxes. Protect the family. We'll move everything, the lake house, the condos, the stocks, into this new Carter Family Trust. It's ironclad, absolutely safe." I signed the papers. I was 70. I was tired. My son Matthew was sitting right there, nodding along. "It's smart, Dad. Rick knows what he's doing." So I signed. I signed it all away. Absolutely safe meant it was safe from me. 3 months ago in court, the judge looked at me with pity. Rick and Cynthia, acting as the trustees, had full power to manage and liquidate assets for the health of the fund. It wasn't theft, the judge explained. It was just aggressive, but legal, fund management. They liquidated everything. $15 million. Gone. They kicked me out of my own home. They took my Mercedes. They even froze my main accounts. As a final generous act, the court ordered them to deposit $50,000 into a new debit account for my living expenses. $50,000. The money I was supposed to live on for the rest of my life. And now, standing in this 7-Eleven, that money was gone too. Insufficient funds. I fumbled with my phone, my hands shaking. I pulled up my bank app. The $50,000. It wasn't just gone. The account was overdrawn. -$200. How? As I stared at the screen, a new notification popped up. An email from Zillow. I opened it. "Your property at 4800 Lake Travis View has just been sold. Sale price $7.2 million. It wasn't your property. It was my property. My home. The home I built. They had sold it. I stumbled out of the store, leaving the soup on the counter. The cold night air hit me. I was 70 years old, penniless, homeless, and freezing. They hadn't just taken my money. They had taken my life. But as I stood there under that buzzing neon sign, the humiliation turned into something else. Something cold. Something hard. Rage. Cynthia and Rick thought I was finished. They thought I was just a clueless old man. They didn't know what I still had. Tucked away in my motel room, the only thing they let me keep was my grandfather's old tin box. I walked the 3 blocks back to the motel. The Austin Star Motor Lodge. It sounds grander than it is. It's a weekly rate dump off the I-35 service road, the kind of place where the curtains never quite close and the ice machine is always broken. My room number 114 smelled like stale cigarettes and industrial cleaner. The carpet was sticky. The air conditioner rattled like a box of bolts, drowning out the sound of the highway traffic just outside my window. This wasn't my home. My home was a 4,000 square foot custom build on Lake Travis. It had floor-to-ceiling glass walls that I designed myself. It had an infinity pool that spilled over toward the water. It had a study lined with mahogany filled with books on architecture and history. It smelled like cedar and old leather. That was my home. And now, according to Zillow, it was someone else's. How did this happen? I keep asking myself that question over and over. How does a man who helped build the skyline of this city end up unable to buy a $7 can of soup? For 40 years I worked. I didn't just work, I built. I was Ben Carter. When I started Carter Properties in 1980, I had nothing but a Ford pickup truck and a $2,000 loan from a credit union. I woke up at 4 a.m. every single day. I poured concrete in the Texas summer sun. I hammered nails until my hands were raw. I learned every single part of the business from the foundation to the roof. I bought my first fourplex when I was 30. By the time I was 40, I owned 3 apartment buildings downtown. By 60, I managed a portfolio worth over $15 million. I did it right. I paid my taxes. I treated my people well. I provided for my family. I gave Cynthia everything she ever asked for. The cars, the vacations to Europe, the jewelry, the status. I gave my children Matthew and Emily the best education money could buy. I paid for Matthew's MBA at UT. I set him up in his career. All of it. It was all for them. And then Rick Shaw came along. He was so smooth, so polished. He smelled like expensive cologne and old money, even though I knew for a fact he came from nothing. He was Matthew's new boss. My son looked up to him. So when he started talking about estate planning and protecting the legacy, I listened. Ben, you've built an empire, he'd said to me right in my own study, sipping my whiskey. But the government is just waiting to take half of it when you're gone. We need to shield it. This family trust, it's ironclad, absolutely safe. I was tired. I was 70. Cynthia had filed for divorce 6 months prior, and I was emotionally exhausted. I just wanted it to be over. It's just cleaner this way, Ben, Rick had said. We manage the trust. You and Cynthia are both beneficiaries. It's all split 50-50. Don't worry about a thing. I didn't worry. I'm a builder, not a lawyer. I trusted the lawyer. I trusted my son, Matthew, who sat right there nodding along. It's smart, Dad. Rick knows what he's doing. What a fool. A clueless old man, just like they thought. Now I'm sitting on a mattress that sinks in the middle, staring at a beige wall stained with God knows what. The $50,000 they gave me, it was a joke. It was meant to run out. It was designed to leave me exactly where I am right now, sitting in the dark with nothing. They thought this would be the end of me. They thought I would just disappear, fade away in a cheap motel. But as I sat there, that cold rage started to build again. They took my houses. They took my money. They took my cars. But they made one mistake. They let me keep my grandfather's old tin box. I stumbled out of the 7-Eleven, leaving the soup and bread on the counter. The kid behind the register didn't even look up. I was already invisible. I walked the 3 blocks back to the motel, the cold night air cutting through my thin jacket. The Austin Star Motor Lodge. It's a weekly rate dump off the I-35 service road, where the curtains never quite close and the ice machine is always broken. My room number 114 smelled like stale cigarettes and industrial cleaner. The carpet was sticky. This wasn't my home. My home was a 4,000 square foot custom build on Lake Travis, with floor-to-ceiling glass walls that I designed myself. How did this happen? I keep asking myself that question. How does a man who helped build the skyline of this city end up unable to buy a $7 can of soup? For 40 years, I worked. I built. I was Ben Carter. I started with nothing but a pickup truck and a $2,000 loan. I poured concrete in the Texas summer sun. I hammered nails until my hands were raw. By the time I was 60, I managed a portfolio worth over $15 million. I gave Cynthia, my wife of 45 years, everything. I gave my children Matthew and Emily the best education money could buy. And then Rick Shaw came along. He was Matthew's new boss. My son looked up to him. So when he started talking about estate planning and protecting the legacy, I listened. Ben, he'd said in my own study, sipping my whiskey, we need to shield your assets. This family trust, it's ironclad, absolutely safe. I was tired. I was 70. Cynthia had filed for divorce 6 months prior, and I was emotionally exhausted. I trusted the lawyer. I trusted my son Matthew, who sat right there nodding. It's smart, Dad. What a fool. I sat there on that sagging motel mattress, the rage making me shake. And just then my phone buzzed on the nightstand. A single sharp vibration. I picked it up. An email notification from Zillow. I subscribed to updates on my own properties. Or what used to be my properties. My fingers were numb as I opened it. Congratulations! Your property at 4800 Lake Travis View has just been sold. Sale price $7.2 million. The air left my lungs. It felt like a physical punch to the stomach. My home. My home. The home I designed. The home I built with my own hands. The home where I raised my children. Sold. The image of the courtroom flashed in my mind so clear it felt like I was there again. 3 months ago. The smell of floor wax and cheap suits. I wasn't sitting with the lawyers. I was sitting on the hard wooden bench in the gallery like a common spectator. Cynthia was up front next to Rick Shaw. She wasn't crying. She wasn't sad. She looked relieved. She kept smoothing the lapels of her new silk blouse, and every few seconds she would look over at Rick and smile. That tight, secret smile they now shared. And Rick, he was magnificent. He was in his element. A $5,000 suit, alligator skin shoes. He looked at me once, just once, during the proceeding. It wasn't a look of pity. It was a look of complete and total contempt. I remembered his voice from 6 months before in my study. Ben, we need to protect your assets. Protect the family. We'll move everything, the lake house, the condos, the stocks, into this new Carter family trust. It's ironclad. Absolutely safe. I realized it now sitting in that stinking motel room. It was absolutely safe. It was safe from me. The judge had explained it in flat legal tones. As trustees, Cynthia and Rick had full power to manage and liquidate assets for the health of the fund. It wasn't theft. It was aggressive but legal fund management. They had liquidated everything. Every property, every stock, every bond. $15 million, 40 years of my life's work, all managed right out of my hands and into accounts I could no longer touch. As a final act of generosity, the court had ordered them to provide for my living expenses. They deposited $50,000 into a new debit account. $50,000. A rounding error in my old life. A king's ransom in my new one. And now standing in that 7-Eleven, that money was gone. The account was overdrawn. They had bled me dry down to the very last cent. They hadn't just divorced me. They had erased me. They had sold my home and left me to rot, unable to even buy a can of soup. I was 70 years old, penniless, homeless, and utterly, completely alone. I stood there under the buzzing neon sign of the 7-Eleven, the phone in my hand feeling like a 50-pound weight. My house was sold. My account was empty. I was 70 years old and destitute. The humiliation I felt at the counter was gone, replaced by a cold, sharp panic. They were bleeding me dry. This wasn't mismanagement. This was a plan. I walked back to the motel, my mind racing. I had one last hope. One person who couldn't possibly be in on this. He just couldn't. My son. Matthew. He was my boy. I taught him how to ride a bike. I sat in the front row at his MBA graduation. I was the one who introduced him to Rick Shaw, so proud to give my son a connection, a start in the high-stakes world of finance. He worked for Rick, yes, but he was my son. He wouldn't let his own father be kicked to the curb. He wouldn't let me starve. He probably just didn't know. He was busy. He trusted Rick just like I did. He didn't know the whole story. I got back to my room number 114. The smell of stale smoke hit me and I had to lean against the wall. I needed to hear his voice. I needed him to fix this. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely dial the number. I felt the shame rise in my throat. The shame of a father having to call his successful son to say, "I can't buy food." It rang once, twice. "Hello." Matthew's voice was distant, distracted. I heard music in the background, clinking glasses, laughter, a restaurant, a nice one. "Matt," I said, my own voice sounding thin, crackly. "Matt, it's Dad." "Dad." He sounded annoyed. That sound cut right through me. The sound of a son inconvenienced by his father. "Hey, what's up? I'm kind of in the middle of a client dinner right now. Can this wait?" "No," I said, the desperation breaking through. "No, son, it can't wait. I'm in trouble. Real trouble." I heard him sigh. A deep, put-upon sigh. "What is it now?" "Dad, did you forget to pay a bill again?" "I told you Rick set up that account to handle all your expenses. You're not supposed to worry about it." "The account," I said, my voice trembling. "Matt, the account is empty. It's gone. It's overdrawn. I tried to buy a can of soup tonight, Matt. A can of soup. The card was declined." The background noise stopped. I heard him stand up, his chair scraping on a wooden floor. "What? That's impossible. Rick put $50,000 in there. You can't have spent $50,000 in 3 months, Dad. What have you been buying?" He was accusing me. My own son was accusing me of being reckless. "Buying?" I nearly shouted. "I've been buying instant noodles and paying the rent on this dump. I haven't bought anything. The money is just gone. And that's not all." "What else?" His voice was sharp now, cautious. "They sold the house." "What?" "The lake house. I got a notification from Zillow. It's sold. For $7.2 million. My house, Matt. Cynthia and Rick. They sold my house." There was a long pause. So long I thought he'd hung up. When he spoke again, his voice had changed. It was smoother, calmer. It was the voice he used in boardrooms. It was Rick's voice. "Dad, okay, you need to calm down. Just take a deep breath." "Calm down," I yelled into the phone. "I'm penniless. I'm in a roach-infested motel and my house is gone. Don't you tell me to calm down." "Dad, listen to me," he said, his voice firm, condescending. "I talked to Rick about this. He was going to tell you." "Tell me what?" "The market, Dad. The Austin real estate market. It's on the verge of a massive crash. Rick has inside information. It's going to be worse than 2008. He had to act fast." He had to sell to protect you. I stopped. The words didn't make sense. Protect me by selling my house out from under me. Yes, to lock in the profit. It was a brilliant move, Dad. He's protecting your assets just like he said he would. My head was spinning. A crash I hadn't heard about a crash. But where is the money, Matt? Where is the $15 million? Where is the $7 million from the sale? It's safe. That's the brilliant part, he said, and I could almost hear him smiling. It's in an international fund, an offshore account. Rick had to move it fast to shield it from the market collapse. It's just locked for a little while. For stabilization. You know legal stuff. Locked, I repeated. What does that mean? How do I eat? And about the debit card? He continued, ignoring my question. That has to be a bank error. A temporary freeze because of all the large asset transfers. It happens. I'll talk to Rick's accounting people first thing in the morning. I'll get it sorted out. Just hang tight. He was talking so fast. It sounded plausible. It sounded so smart. Dad, you have to trust the process. Rick is a genius at this stuff. That's why we're with him. I wanted to believe him. God, how I wanted to believe him. A bank error, I whispered. You're sure? Yeah, of course. Absolutely. Listen, Dad, I really gotta get back to this dinner. It's a big client. I'll wire you $500 from my personal account right now just to hold you over until I get the card fixed. Okay, just sit tight and stop worrying. We've got this. Okay, I said. Okay, Matt. Thank you. No problem, Dad. Talk soon. He hung up. I sat on the edge of the sagging mattress. My heart was still pounding, but the blind panic had eased. A bank error, a market crash, a plan to protect me. It all made a terrible kind of sense. Matthew was right. Rick was a genius. I was just a clueless old man. I didn't understand these complex financial moves. I felt a wave of relief so strong it made me dizzy. My son was looking out for me. He was going to send me $500. He would get the card fixed. I just needed to sit tight. I just needed to trust the process. I sat there for a minute, maybe two, just breathing. My entire world, which had shattered just minutes before, was slowly reassembling itself. It was okay. It was all a plan. Then my phone buzzed again. A text message. I smiled, thinking it was Matthew confirming the $500 transfer. I looked at the screen. It wasn't from Matthew. It was from my daughter, Emily. My fingers fumbled as I opened it. The message had only one line in all caps. Dad, don't talk to Matthew. He's lying. I'm at a restaurant. I just heard Mom and Rick toasting their new yacht in the Caymans. Call me now. The words didn't register. They swam in front of my eyes. Lying. Yacht. Caymans. It was like a foreign language. It was the exact opposite of what Matthew had just told me. The relief I had felt moments ago vanished, replaced by a cold, sickening dread that was 1,000 times worse than the panic. My fingers were stiff as I hit the call button next to her name. She picked up before the first ring finished. Dad. Her voice was a terrified whisper. Dad, are you okay? Where are you? I'm at a motel, I stammered. Emily, what's going on? I just talked to Matt. He said there was a market crash that Rick sold the house to protect me. He said the money is in a safe fund. He's lying, she hissed. The whisper was gone, replaced by pure, unfiltered fury. Dad, he is lying to your face. There is no crash. I'm here. I'm a teacher, Dad. I'm chaperoning the senior trip in Florida. We had a layover in Miami. I knew Mom and Rick were flying south, so I checked the flight manifests. They weren't going to Miami. They were going to Grand Cayman. The Caymans, Matt said, an offshore fund. Dad, stop, she pleaded. It's not a fund. It's their account. I followed them. I took a cab from the airport. I'm sitting in the hotel restaurant across from them right now. They're at the bar. They're drinking champagne. They're laughing, Dad. They're laughing about you. I slid off the bed and sank to the sticky carpet. I couldn't feel my legs. Laughing. Yes, I'm close enough to hear them. Rick just raised his glass. He said, "To the old fool, may he enjoy his $50,000 retirement." And Mom laughed. Dad. She clinked his glass and said, "He was always too trusting. It's his own fault." And then Rick said, "Here's to the Lady C." The Lady C. The name of their new yacht, Dad. He was complaining that the $7.2 million from the lake house sale barely covered the cost of the boat and the new condo here. He said it was a good thing the rest of the $15 million was already safely in Switzerland. Switzerland. Cayman Islands. A yacht. My $7 million house. My son. Matthew, I whispered. What about Matthew? That's the worst part. Emily's voice broke. Rick just joked about Matthew. He said, "And to Matt for running interference so well. He really earned his commission." Dad, Matthew isn't just confused. He's in on it. He's their accomplice. He's been lying to you this whole time. The bank error, the market crash, it was all a script to keep you quiet while they finished robbing you. The phone slipped from my hand and clattered onto the floor. I couldn't breathe. The air in the room was too thick. Matthew, my son, the boy I taught to ride a bike, the man whose MBA I paid for. He wasn't just misled. He wasn't just weak. He was a participant. He was being paid a commission for handling his own father. The $500 wire transfer he promised. It wasn't a lifeline. It was a dog treat. A little something to keep the clueless old man quiet in his kennel while they celebrated on their new yacht. The image of Rick Shaw's smug, satisfied face flashed in my mind. The image of Cynthia's laugh. The sound of Matthew's condescending professional voice on the phone. Dad, you have to trust the process. The process. The process was theft. The process was betrayal on a scale I couldn't comprehend. They hadn't just taken my money. They had taken my son. They had turned my own son against me. I picked the phone back up. "Emily," I said, and my voice was different. The weakness was gone. The shaking had stopped. A cold, hard clarity was settling in like ice forming in my veins. "Emily, I need you to do something for me. Right now. Can you do it?" "Anything, Dad." "I need you to take a picture. Get a video. I need proof. I need to see their faces toasting their new life. I need evidence." "Okay, Dad. I can do that. I'll pretend I'm taking a selfie." I heard her fumbling with the phone. "Oh God. Dad, they're ordering another bottle." Rick has his arm around her. They look so happy. "Get the picture, honey. Then get out of there. Get on your plane. Be safe. And don't tell anyone you spoke to me. Not Matthew, no one." "Okay, I got it. It's uploading now." "Dad, what are you going to do?" I stood up. I looked around the cheap, disgusting room that they had put me in. I looked at the insufficient funds error still glowing on my bank app. "I'm going to find out what my grandfather left me," I said. The line was silent for a beat. "What, Dad? What are you talking about?" "The tin box, Emily. The only thing they let me keep. There's a bank card inside. And a key." "Dad, that's just old junk." "No," I said. The ice in my veins was spreading. It was a strange, terrible strength. "They thought it was junk. They thought I was junk. They think I'm a clueless old man who's just going to lie down and die. They're wrong." The pounding on the motel room door felt like a hammer blow to my skull. It was not a polite knock. It was the heavy, impatient fist of someone who wanted me out. "Carter, room 114. Open up." I stumbled off the sagging mattress. It was 9 in the morning. I had not slept. I had spent the entire night staring at the ceiling, my daughter Emily's words echoing in my head. Yacht, Caymans, commission, lying. I opened the door. The motel manager stood there. He was a man half my age with a permanent scowl and a coffee stain down the front of his polo shirt. "Your card," he said, holding up a small slip of paper. It was declined. The weekly rent was due at 6 a.m. Of course. The $50,000. It was not just low, it was gone. Cynthia and Rick had not just cut me off, they had pulled the plug completely. They had probably timed it perfectly. Timed it for the exact day they would be flying to the Caymans, so I would be destitute and unable to follow. I just talked to my son. I stammered, the old shame flooding back. There's a bank error. He's wiring me money. It should be here any minute. The manager looked at me with dead eyes. He had heard every excuse in the book. I don't care about bank errors, old man. This is a cash up front business. You got no money, you get no room. You got 1 hour. Pack your junk and get out. Or I'm calling Austin PD to have you removed for trespassing. He slammed the door. 1 hour. I looked around the filthy room. 1 hour to pack what was left of my life. It did not take 1 hour. It took 10 minutes. My entire worldly possessions fit into a single cheap polyester suitcase I had bought at Goodwill. A few pairs of worn trousers, 3 shirts, a toothbrush, my heart medication. Everything else. My suits, my library, my photographs, my history was in that house on Lake Travis. The house that was no longer mine. It was all assets of the trust, liquidated by Rick and Cynthia. I zipped the suitcase, and there it was, sitting on the nightstand. The only other thing I owned. My grandfather's old tin box. It was an old dark blue tin, probably for biscuits or tobacco from the 1930s. The paint was chipped, the edges were rusted. On the lid, barely visible, was a faded picture of a sailing ship. When Rick and the movers had come to my house to escort me out, I had grabbed it. Cynthia had rolled her eyes. "Oh, let him keep his junk, Rick. What's he going to do, sell it for scrap?" She thought it was sentimental trash, and because she thought it was worthless, she let me have it. I tucked the tin box under my arm. I grabbed the handle of my suitcase. I took one last look at the miserable room that had been my prison, and then I walked out into the bright, indifferent Texas morning. I was 70 years old. I was homeless. I was standing on the side of the I-35 service road with a suitcase and a tin box. I had exactly $0 to my name. My son's $500 dog treat had never arrived. Of course it had not. It was just another part of the lie. A light drizzle started to fall. Cold for an Austin morning. It soaked through my thin jacket almost instantly. I started walking. I had no destination. I just walked. Cars sped past, splashing dirty water onto my trousers. I must have looked like exactly what I was. A vagrant. An old man who had been thrown away. I walked for an hour, maybe 2. The drizzle turned into a steady, cold rain. I was soaked to the bone. My back ached. My feet throbbed. I needed to sit down. I needed to get out of the rain. I saw the sign for the Austin Public Library. Free. Warm. Anonymous. I walked inside, dripping water onto the polished floor. The security guard looked at me with suspicion, but I ignored him. I found a small table in the back in the history section where no one ever went. I sat down, catching my breath. The silence of the library was a relief. I put my suitcase at my feet. I placed the wet tin box on the table in front of me. I just stared at it for a long time. This was it. The sum total of my life. The only thing they had not taken. My fingers fumbled with the rusty clasp. It popped open with a faint metallic groan. I opened the lid. Inside was just what Cynthia had assumed. Junk. Old faded photographs. My grandfather's dog tags from World War I. A lock of my mother's hair. But underneath it all, at the very bottom, was an old cracked leather wallet. It was stiff with age. I pulled it out. It smelled like old paper and dust. I opened the flap, and there it was. It was not money. It was a strange, papery plastic bank card, slightly yellowed with elegant cursive script. First National Merchants Bank, it read. Account holder Josiah Carter. Next to it was a small, ornate metal key, the kind for a safe deposit box. And tucked behind the card was a tiny folded piece of notepaper. The ink was faded, but I could still read my grandfather's handwriting. First National Merchants Bank, Austin, Main Branch, Vault 312. I laughed. A short, bitter, hopeless sound that made a student at a nearby table look up in annoyance. First National Merchants Bank. It had not existed in my lifetime. It was probably bought out in the 60s. The account, the box, it was all long gone, closed, the contents seized by the state decades ago. It was the final bitter joke. My grandfather's legacy was just as worthless as mine. I stared at the card and the key. It was all junk, but then, a small, impossible thought. My grandfather, Josiah. He was not a sentimental fool. He was the hardest, smartest man I had ever known. He came to Texas with nothing and built a life. He never wasted a penny. He never kept anything that did not have a purpose. Why would he keep this? Why would he put it in his most sacred box if it was worthless? It was junk. It had to be. But as I sat there, soaked and broken with nothing else in the world, that one impossible thought began to burn. What if it wasn't? I walked into the Austin Public Library, dripping rainwater onto the polished marble floor. The security guard eyed me, his gaze lingering on my cheap suitcase and the rusty tin box under my arm. He probably thought I was homeless. The bitter truth was, he was right. I ignored him. I needed warmth. I needed a place to sit that was not a bus stop bench. I found a small table in the back, in the history section, where the lights were dim and the air was still. I sat down, my whole body aching. I was 70 years old. I was soaked to the skin, and I had nowhere else to go. I put my suitcase at my feet. I placed the wet tin box on the dark wood table. The contrast was stark. This old, rusted thing. When Rick's movers came to escort me out of my own house, Cynthia had laughed when I grabbed it. "Oh, let him keep his junk, Rick," she had said, her voice dripping with contempt. "What is he going to do, sell it for scrap?" She thought it was worthless. And because she thought it was worthless, she let me keep it. It was the only thing they did not take. My fingers were numb from the cold, and I fumbled with the rusty clasp. It popped open with a faint metallic groan. The smell of dust and old paper, the smell of decades, hit me. Inside was just what Cynthia had assumed. Junk. A lifetime of memories that had no cash value. My grandfather's dog tags from the Great War. A faded black and white photo of my mother as a girl, her hair in braids. A lock of her hair tied with a faded blue ribbon. Sentimental trash. But underneath it all, at the very bottom, there was something else. An old cracked leather wallet. It was stiff with age, the leather dark and worn. It smelled like my grandfather's study, a scent I had not thought about in 60 years. I pulled it out. It was heavier than it looked. I opened the main flap, and there it was. It was not money. It was a card. A strange old bank card made of thick, laminated paper, almost like a ration card from the war. The edges were yellowed. The type was elegant, old-fashioned script. First National Merchants Bank, it read. Account holder Josiah Carter. My heart gave a strange, pointless little kick. A defunct bank. Useless. Next to it, in a small leather sleeve, was a key. Not a house key. It was long and slender, made of brass with an ornate bow. It had a number stamped into it, 312. And tucked behind the card, folded into a tiny square, was a piece of notepaper. The ink was faded to a light brown, but I could still read my grandfather's sharp, clear handwriting. First National Merchants Bank, Austin Main Branch, Vault 312. I laughed. A short, bitter, hopeless sound that made a student at a nearby table look up in annoyance. First National Merchants Bank. It had not existed in my lifetime. I vaguely remembered my father saying it was bought out in the 60s or 70s by a bigger bank, which was then bought by an even bigger one. It was a ghost, a dead bank, a dead account, a key to a vault that had been drilled out and melted down 50 years ago. The account, the box, it was all long gone, closed, the contents seized by the state decades ago. It was the final bitter joke from the universe. My grandfather's legacy was just as worthless as mine. I stared at the card and the key. It was all junk. It had to be. But a small thought sharp as a needle pierced through my despair. I knew my grandfather. Josiah Carter was not a sentimental fool. He was the hardest, smartest man I had ever known. He came to Texas with nothing but the clothes on his back and built a life out of pure grit. He never wasted a penny. He never spoke an unnecessary word. He never kept anything that did not have a precise, calculated purpose. He would not keep this. He would not put this specific collection of items in his most sacred box if it was just trash. He would not have written that note. It was junk. It had to be. But what if it was not? What if somehow after all these years it was still active? The thought was insane. It was the desperate grasping of a drowning man. It was the fantasy of a homeless old man in a public library. I looked at the library's computer terminals across the room. They were free. I was soaked. I was broken. I had nothing else in the world. But I had this one impossible chance. I stood up, leaving my suitcase, but clutching the old leather wallet in my hand. I walked over to the computer. I sat down. My fingers still shaking, typed the words into the search bar, First National Merchants Bank. I sat there at the library computer terminal, the search results glowing on the screen. First National Merchants Bank, the article said, was acquired by Texas Commerce Bank in 1968, which was later merged into. It was a long, tangled history of acquisitions. The bank as it was gone. But the assets were not. They had been absorbed. The trail was cold, convoluted, and would take lawyers and money to navigate. Money. I had none. I was still a homeless man sitting in a public library. The card and key in my wallet were a lottery ticket I could not even afford to check. I needed cash. Not just for food, but to move, to be a person again, to hire a lawyer, to fight back. I looked down at my wrist. It was hidden under the cuff of my damp, worn-out shirt. I had worn it for 30 years, a Rolex Submariner, solid gold blue face, a 40th anniversary gift from Cynthia. The irony was so thick it made me want to gag. She had given me this symbol of my success, and now it was the only piece of that success I had left. Everything else, the houses, the cars, the accounts, was in the trust. But she had overlooked this. She had probably forgotten she even gave it to me. It was worth at least $8,000, maybe 10. It would be enough. Enough to get a room to hire someone for a few hours. I stood up, slid the old wallet into my pocket, and walked out of the library, back into the miserable, cold rain. I knew a place. A pawn shop on 6th Street I used to pass on my way to my old office. I always looked at it with a kind of detached pity. A museum of broken dreams. Now I was walking toward it. The walk was the longest of my life. Every step was a fresh humiliation. I was Ben Carter, a pillar of the Austin business community, walking to a pawn shop to sell his watch for scraps. I kept my head down, my collar pulled up, praying I would not see anyone I knew. The bell above the door gave a sad, tinny jingle as I pushed it open. The shop smelled like dust, old electronics, and stale cigars. It was a long, narrow room lined with glass cases. Guitars hung from the ceiling like dead birds. Rings glittered under the fluorescent lights. A man behind the counter looked up from his newspaper. He was my age, maybe a few years younger, with a graying ponytail and eyes that had seen every kind of hard luck story. "Help you," he said, his voice a low gravel. I could not speak. I felt like a failure. I just stood there dripping on his floor. "Look, buddy," he said, "you buying or selling, I ain't running a shelter." My hand trembled as I unclasped the watch. The heavy gold felt warm against my cold skin. I slid it across the glass counter. The man's eyes flickered, showing the first sign of interest. "Ah," he said. He picked it up, feeling its weight. He pulled a jeweler's loupe from his pocket and squinted at the face. "Submariner. Nice." He turned it over, checking the clasp, the serial number. "Got the papers for it." "Papers?" I said, my voice hoarse. "You mean—" "The box, no. It was in my house. I had to leave in a hurry." He grunted. "No papers, no box. That hurts the value. Hurts it a lot. You could have stolen it for all I know." "I did not steal it," I said, my voice rising. "That was a gift from my wife. For my 40th anniversary. Yeah. Everyone's got a story." He tossed it back on the counter, the gold making a sick, heavy thud on the glass. "Market's soft on these right now. I see a few scratches on the bezel." I knew what he was doing. I had negotiated multi-million-dollar deals. I knew a lowball when I heard one. "That watch is worth $10,000, I said. "I'll take 8. He laughed. A short, ugly bark. "8,000 in your dreams, old man. Without papers, I'd have to sit on this for months. Best I can do is 500. Cash." 500. The words came out as a squeak. That's criminal. It's solid gold." "It's 500, he said, leaning back and folding his arms. "Take it or leave it. I'm the only game in town that'll give you cash on the spot, no questions asked. And you look like a man who needs cash on the spot." He was right. I was trapped. I looked at the watch, my beautiful watch. 30 years. My entire successful life reduced to $500. I felt the tears welling up hot and angry. I would not cry. I would not cry in a pawnshop. "Fine," I whispered, the word tearing out of my throat. "Fine. Give me the money." He turned to his register, his back to me. I stood there defeated, utterly and completely broken. And at that exact moment, through the dirty, rain-streaked window of the shop, a car pulled up to the red light. It was not just any car. It was a Maserati, a Ghibli, sleek and black as night, gleaming even in the rain. It purred at the light, an expensive, powerful sound. My heart stopped. I knew that car. The driver's window was tinted, but I could see the silhouette inside. The man was on his phone. He was laughing. Then he turned his head as if sensing my gaze. It was Rick Shaw. He was wearing a pair of expensive sunglasses even in the gray rain. His hair was perfectly slicked back. He was tan. He was not in Austin. He was supposed to be in the Caymans on my money. But here he was. His eyes, hidden behind the dark lenses, scanned the street. And then they found me. He stared. Through the rain, through the dirty glass. Right at me. He saw me. Ben Carter, standing in a pawn shop, haggard, soaked, and pathetic. He saw the Rolex on the counter between me and the owner. He saw my face, the desperation, the defeat. He did not look shocked. He did not look guilty. He smiled. It was not a friendly smile. It was a slow, deliberate curl of the lips. A smirk of pure, unadulterated contempt. A victor's smile. He knew. He knew I was broke. He knew he had won. He raised his hand in a small, mocking wave. The light turned green. Rick revved the engine. The Maserati let out a deep, throaty growl that vibrated through the glass. and it tore away from the light, disappearing down the street. I stood there frozen. My hands were balled into fists, my nails digging into my palms. The shame was gone. The sadness was gone. All that was left was a rage so pure and so cold, it felt like the ice in my veins from the night before. "Here you go," the pawnshop owner said, pushing a small stack of 50s and 20s across the counter. I did not look at him. I did not look at the money. I kept staring at the empty space where the Maserati had been. "I said, 'Here's your money,'" he repeated, annoyed. I slowly turned my head. I scooped up the cash. It felt dirty. I stuffed the bills into my pocket. I was not a broken man anymore. I was not a victim. I was a man with $500, a tin box, and a war to win. I stood there frozen, staring at the empty space where the Maserati had been. My hands were balled into fists, my nails digging so deep into my palms I thought I might draw blood. Rick's smirk, that mocking little wave, it was not just contempt. It was a victory lap. He had come back from the Caymans just to see this, to see me broken, to see me selling my last piece of dignity for scraps in a gutter-front pawn shop. The shame I had felt moments before, the humiliation of begging for my own watch, it all evaporated. It was replaced by something else, something I had not felt in a very long time. A cold, pure, clarifying rage. It started in my gut and spread through my chest like fire. It burned away the fog of despair. It burned away the weakness. I was not a victim. I was not a clueless old man. I was Ben Carter. I built an empire from dust. And this parasite, thought he could just take it, thought he could laugh at me. I would not be defeated. I would not be erased. "Here you go," the pawnshop owner said again, annoyed, pushing the small stack of 50s and 20s across the glass. I slowly turned my head. My gaze must have been frightening because he actually flinched. I did not see the money as a handout. I saw it as a weapon. It was the first bullet in my gun. I scooped up the cash. $500. It felt dirty, tainted, but it was mine. I stuffed the bills deep into my pocket. "Have a nice day," the owner mumbled, already turning back to his newspaper. I walked out of that pawn shop. The rain was still falling, but I did not feel it anymore. The cold was gone. All I felt was the fire inside me. Rick thought I was finished. Cynthia thought I was finished. My own son Matthew thought I was finished. They had left me for dead. But they had forgotten about my grandfather. They had overlooked his old tin box, and they had underestimated me. I did not walk back to the library. I turned the other way toward downtown. I knew exactly where I was going. The library search had given me the name. First National Merchants Bank had been absorbed, bought, and merged over 60 years. Its assets, its accounts, its vaults, they all now belonged to one of the biggest names in the country. The monolithic glass tower of the Wells Fargo Plaza loomed in the distance. I clutched the old leather wallet in my coat pocket, the $500 in my trousers. I was a 70-year-old man in worn-out clothes with no home and no family. But I was walking toward that billion-dollar bank tower. I was not going there to beg. I was not going there to ask for help. I was going there to make a withdrawal. The Wells Fargo Plaza towered over me, a sheer cliff of dark glass and steel, disappearing into the gray, rainy sky. It was a cathedral of money, a place I used to walk into for million-dollar loan negotiations without a second thought. Today, I walked in as a ghost. The lobby was vast. The ceiling was 3 stories high. The floors were polished Italian marble so shiny I could see the reflection of the worried old wet man I had become. The air was silent, heavy, and cold, smelling faintly of clean money and expensive air freshening. Everyone was dressed in tailored suits and sharp business attire. They moved with purpose. And then there was me. I stood dripping rainwater onto the pristine floor. My shoes, the only pair I owned, squeaked with every step. My clothes were damp and rumpled. My suitcase and tin box were back at the library, hidden under a table. All I had was the $500 in my pocket and the old leather wallet clutched in my hand. I looked like what I was, a vagrant, an outcast. I approached the teller line. There was no line. A young woman, barely 25, sat behind a thick glass partition. She had perfect hair, perfect makeup, and a bright, artificial smile that did not reach her eyes. "How can I help you today?" she chirped, her voice too loud in the quiet lobby. I stepped forward, my voice barely a whisper. "Hello, I need to inquire about an old account." Her smile faltered for a fraction of a second as she took in my appearance. She was polite, but her eyes were cold. "Okay, sir. Do you have your debit card and an ID?" "I have this," I said. I slid the old leather wallet under the glass. I opened it to the laminated paper card. "It's an account with the First National Merchants Bank." She stopped. She stared at the card. She looked at me. She looked back at the card. The artificial smile was completely gone now, replaced by a look of baffled irritation. What?" she said, as if I had spoken a foreign language. "The First National Merchants Bank," I repeated, pushing it closer. "My grandfather, Josiah Carter, opened it. I have the card, and I have the key." I pointed to the small brass key in the sleeve. She looked at me like I was insane, like I had walked in and asked to trade magic beans. "Sir," she said, her voice slow and patronizing, the kind you use for a confused child or a senile old man. "I have never heard of that bank. This branch is Wells Fargo." "I know," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I researched it. At the library. Your bank acquired them. Through a series of mergers. Texas Commerce Bank then." She held up a perfectly maniciled hand to stop me. "Sir, if that bank even existed, that account would have been closed decades ago. Any funds would have been escheated. That means they were turned over to the state of Texas as unclaimed property. You would need to contact the state comptroller's office. We would have no record of it." "But it's a trust account," I pressed. "And I have the safe deposit key. Vault 312. She sighed. It was a long theatrical sigh of someone who was dealing with a lunatic and just wanted him to leave. "Sir, we don't have a Vault 312. Our safe deposit boxes are all numbered in the thousands. That key probably belongs to an old post office box. Or a locker." The condescension in her voice was like gasoline on the rage I still felt from Rick's mocking smile. "Could you please just check?" I said, my voice rising. "Josiah Carter, First National Merchants Bank." She rolled her eyes. "Fine." She turned to her computer terminal and began typing, her fingernails making sharp clicking sounds on the keyboard. She typed for maybe 15 seconds. She stopped. She shook her head. "Nope, nothing. No record of a Josiah Carter. No record of that bank. No account." "That's impossible," I said. "You have to look deeper. In the old systems, the archives." "Sir," she said, and now her voice was hard. "There is nothing. The system shows no such account. That card is just a piece of paper. That key is just a piece of metal. There is nothing here for you." She looked past me to the next person in line, a man in a crisp suit. "Next, please." I did not move. "Sir, I'm going to have to ask you to step aside." "No," I said. The word was quiet, but it was hard as iron. Her eyes snapped back to me. "What did you say?" I said, "No. I am not leaving. I am not stepping aside. That is a real account. That is a real key, and you are not going to dismiss me like I'm a crazy old man. I know what I have. Now I want to speak to your manager. The branch manager, not a supervisor. The main manager. Right now." She stared at me, her mouth slightly open. People like me were not supposed to talk back. We were supposed to shuffle away in defeat. "Sir, she said, her voice low and threatening. "If you don't step aside, I will call security." "Then you call security," I said, my voice rising, echoing in the marble hall. Every person in the bank turned to look. The man in the suit behind me took a step back. "Call them. I don't care. I am Ben Carter. My family has banked in this city for 3 generations, and I am telling you this is a valid account, and I will not be treated like a piece of trash. Get your manager." The young woman turned pale. Her perfect composure was shattered. She picked up her desk phone, her hand shaking slightly. She whispered into it. "A man is here. An old man. He's causing a disturbance. He's asking about a bank that doesn't exist. He won't leave." She listened, then hung up. She looked at me with pure hatred. "Mr. Harrison will be out in a moment. He will tell you the exact same thing." "We'll see," I said. I stood there, my heart hammering. I was burning every bridge. I was making a fool of myself. I was a crazy old man yelling in a bank lobby, clutching a 75-year-old piece of paper. This was it. The final, desperate gamble. If the manager threw me out, I had nothing left. No watch, no money, no hope. Just a cold street and a tin box full of ghosts. I stood there. The marble floor felt cold through the soles of my wet shoes. The young woman, the teller, was looking past me, her artificial smile already fixed on the man in a crisp suit waiting behind me. "Next, please," she repeated louder this time. I did not move. "Sir," she said, her voice dropping that fake polite chirp. Now it was just cold, hard. "I am going to have to ask you to step aside. You are holding up the line." "No." The word was quiet, but it felt loud in the cavernous, silent lobby. It felt like it came from someone else, someone stronger. Her eyes snapped back to me. Her perfect makeup could not hide the flash of genuine anger. "What did you say?" I said no. This time my voice was firm. The tremor was gone. That cold fire I felt at the pawnshop was back, burning away, the shame burning away, the despair. "I am not leaving." "Sir, I have already told you," she said, her voice low and tight. "That account does not exist. It was transferred to the state decades ago. There is nothing here for you." "You told me," I said, leaning as close as I could to the glass partition. "But did you look? Did you look in the archives? Or did you just type my name into your little modern system and decide a 75-year-old account is too much trouble for you on a Tuesday morning?" She was shocked. People who looked like me, wet old poor, were not supposed to argue. We were supposed to shuffle away defeated. "You are causing a disturbance," she hissed, her face turning a blotchy red under her foundation. "No," I countered, my voice rising just enough to make the people at the desks look up. "I am a customer of a bank that you bought, and I have a valid inquiry." "That," she pointed a sharp, red-nailed finger at the old wallet, "is not a valid inquiry. It is a piece of paper, and that," she pointed at the key, "is junk. Now move or I am calling security." "Then you call security," my voice echoed. The man in the suit behind me took a visible step back. Every head in the bank turned. I did not care. I was done being quiet. I was done being the clueless old man. "Call them. I am not leaving this bank until I speak to someone who actually knows what they are doing. I have the safe deposit key right here." I tapped the glass right over the brass key. "Vault 312, First National Merchants Bank. I am Ben Carter. My family has banked in this city for 3 generations, and I will not be treated like a piece of trash." I took a breath. "Get your manager." The young woman turned pale. Her perfect composure was shattered. She grabbed her desk phone, her hand visibly shaking with rage. She whispered into it. "There is a man here, an old man. He's causing a disturbance. He's asking about a bank that does not exist. He will not leave." She listened for a moment, then hung up. She looked at me with pure hatred. Mr. Harrison will be out in a moment, and he will tell you the exact same thing, and then security will remove you. We will see, I said. I stood there, my heart hammering against my ribs. My legs felt weak. I was burning every bridge. I was a crazy old man yelling in a bank lobby, clutching a 75-year-old piece of paper. This was it, the final desperate gamble. If the manager threw me out, I had nothing left. No watch, no money, no hope. Just a cold street and a tin box full of ghosts. A door with a frosted glass window opened behind the counter, and a man in a crisp, dark gray suit emerged. He looked to be in his late 50s or early 60s, tall with silvering hair and an air of complete, unshakable authority. He looked expensive. He looked annoyed. He did not look at me. He spoke directly to the teller. "Jessica, what is the problem here? This man," she spat the word, "refuses to leave. He's holding up the line. He's delusional. He thinks he has an account from some bank that closed before I was born. I told him we have no record, and he demanded to see you." The manager, Mr. Harrison, finally turned his gaze on me. It was not a kind gaze. It was the look of a man who has to clean up a mess. "Sir," he said, his voice polite but firm as steel, "I understand you are inquiring about an old account." "I am," I said, holding my ground, "and my associate has informed you that we have no record of this account. Our systems are quite thorough. If it is not there, it does not exist. The funds would have been transferred to the state as unclaimed property years ago." "Your systems," I said, "not your archives. I have the card, and I have the key." "Sir," he sighed, the picture of practiced patience. "Old keys, old cards. They do not mean anything. People find them in attics. It does not mean there is money attached. Now I must insist you—" "Josiah Carter," I said, cutting him off. Harrison stopped. "The account is for Josiah Carter. The key is for Vault 312 at the First National Merchants Bank. I am his grandson, Benjamin Carter, and I am not leaving." I slid the old leather wallet under the glass. I did not care that he was the boss. I did not care that he was annoyed. "Look at it," I commanded. Harrison, probably just to end the confrontation, leaned down. He frowned, putting on a pair of reading glasses. He looked at the old laminated paper card. He looked at the name Josiah Carter. He looked at the key 312. He looked back at the card. Then he looked up at me. Really looked at me. His eyes, which had been bored and dismissive, widened. He stared at my face. My eyes. My jawline. The color drained from his face. The annoyance was gone, replaced by something I could not read. Shock. Disbelief. "Carter," he whispered, his professional voice suddenly gone, replaced by a strange, shaky breath. "You said, your name is Carter." "Benjamin Carter," I said. "Josiah Carter's grandson." "Yes." He stared at me for another second, then back at the card. He looked like he had seen a ghost. "Jessica," he said, his voice quiet but urgent. "Cancel my 11 o'clock meeting, now." He turned back to me, fumbling for a key card on his belt. "Sir," he said, and all the condescension was gone. "Please come with me. We will use my office." I stood there, my heart hammering. The lobby was dead silent. The man in the suit behind me had taken a conspicuous step back, wanting no part of this confrontation. The teller, Jessica, was staring at me with a look of pure, unadulterated hatred. I had ruined her morning. I was the crazy old man in the lobby, the disturbance, the trash that needed to be taken out. I did not care. That smirk. Rick Shaw's mocking smile laughing at me from his Maserati as I stood broken in a pawn shop. That image was burned into my brain. I would not be moved. I would not be dismissed. A frosted glass door behind the counter hissed open, and a man stepped out. He was tall, maybe 60, with a head of perfect silver hair. He wore a suit that was clearly custom-tailored, dark gray and expensive. It probably cost more than the $500 in my pocket. His face was set in a mask of polite annoyance. This was Mr. Harrison. He did not even look at me. He spoke directly to the teller. "Jessica, what is the problem here?" His voice was smooth, deep, and utterly accustomed to being obeyed. "This man," she spat the word as if it tasted bad. "He refuses to leave. He's holding up the line. He's delusional. He thinks he has an account from some bank that closed before I was born. I told him we have no record, and he demanded to see you. He's causing a scene." Harrison finally turned his gaze on me. It was not a kind look. It was not a helpful look. It was the look of a busy, important man who has to clean up a mess. He saw my wet clothes, my worn face, my 70 years of failure. "Sir," he said, his voice dripping with the kind of forced patience that is more insulting than yelling, "I understand you are inquiring about an old account." I met his gaze. My rage was cold now. "I am," I said, "and my associate has informed you that we have no record of this account. Our systems are quite thorough." He was dismissing me just as she had. "If it is not in our current system, it simply means it does not exist. Any funds from a defunct bank like that would have been turned over to the state as unclaimed property decades ago. That is the law. Your grievance is with the state comptroller's office, not with us. Now I must insist." "And the safe deposit box," I said, cutting him off. Harrison actually let out a small, quiet scoff, a little puff of air, the sound of amusement. "Sir, keys like that are a dime a dozen. People find them in attics. They belong to old luggage, to forgotten filing cabinets, to post office boxes. They do not," he emphasized, "mean there is a magic vault full of money waiting for you here. Now for the final time, I must insist you leave." "Josiah Carter," I said again, louder. The name felt strange on my tongue. "The account is for Josiah Carter. The key is for Vault 312 at the First National Merchants Bank. I am his grandson, Benjamin Carter, and I am not leaving until you check." I took the old cracked leather wallet from my pocket. My hands were shaking again, but not from fear. It was from pure, unadulterated adrenaline. I slid it under the glass partition. "Look at it." Harrison's face tightened. His politeness was gone. He was angry now. I could see his jaw clench. He was going to call security. He was going to have me physically thrown out onto the street, but the entire lobby was staring. The man in the suit was still waiting. The other tellers had stopped their work. He had an audience. He could not just throw me out without finishing the performance. He had to look. With a dramatic put-upon sigh, he snatched the wallet from the tray and held it up with obvious disdain. He leaned down, putting on a pair of sleek, gold-rimmed reading glasses. And then he stopped. Everything stopped. The entire world seemed to halt on its axis. His gaze was fixed on the laminated paper card. He was not glancing at it. He was reading it. He read the name. Josiah Carter. His head snapped up. He stared at my face. His eyes, which had been bored and dismissive, were now wide, unblinking. They were scanning my features, my eyes, my jawline, my nose. He looked back at the card, then back at my face. It was not a casual glance. He was comparing me. He was matching my face to a memory. The color drained from his face. I watched it happen. The healthy, ruddy complexion of a successful executive turned to a pale, waxy, sickly gray. His mouth fell open slightly. "Carter," he whispered. His voice was not smooth anymore. It was not authoritative. It was a shaky, strangled breath. You said your name is Carter? Benjamin Carter?" I said, my own heart hammering against my ribs. Josiah Carter's grandson. "Yes." He stared at me for another second, as if he was seeing a ghost. He looked at the teller Jessica, who was watching this completely bewildered. He worked at the main branch in this building back in the 1950s. He pointed a trembling finger at the wallet. Josiah Carter. The Josiah Carter Trust. It is a legend. It is the bank's ghost story. A ghost story. A story the old-timers used to tell, he said, talking fast now. About an account opened in Do Not 1948. An account that no one ever touched. My father used to say it was set up by one of the original Texas oil men, and that it was just sitting there, waiting. We all thought it was a myth, a story to spook new tellers. He turned to his computer, his hands trembling. No one ever thought a family member would actually walk in with the key. He started typing not into the modern, colorful Wells Fargo system, but into a different screen, an old black and green terminal interface, the archives, the deep core. He typed in the name, Josiah Carter. He typed in the account number from the card. He hit enter. We both waited. A small green cursor flashed. Then, a line of text appeared. Account status active. Harrison made a small choking sound in his throat. It is real, he whispered. My God. It is active. The teller Jessica was frozen, her face a mask of pale, horrified disbelief. Harrison did not look at her again. He fumbled with a key card on his belt, his hand shaking so badly he missed the scanner twice. The lock on the frosted glass door buzzed loudly, an angry sound in the silent lobby. He pushed it open and held it for me. Sir, he said, his voice now a low, urgent whisper. Please, this way. I walked past Jessica. I did not look at her. I did not have to. I could feel her staring at my back. I walked through the door that separates the customers from the real bank. The carpet was thick and plush, swallowing the sound of my wet shoes. Harrison led me down a quiet, carpeted hallway, past expensive modern art and heavy wooden doors with gold nameplates. He stopped at the end at a large corner office with a floor-to-ceiling window overlooking the city. His office. Please, he said, gesturing wildly to a deep black leather chair that probably cost more than my old car. Sit. Please sit. Can I get you water, coffee, anything? His hands were fluttering. He was a man completely unmoored. No, I said. My voice was steady. I want answers. He nodded quickly. Yes, of course. Answers. He sat behind his massive mahogany desk, but he did not lean back in his chair. He sat on the edge, leaning forward, staring at the old, cracked leather wallet that I had placed on his desk blotter. He looked at that laminated paper card as if it were a live grenade. Josiah Carter, he said again, mostly to himself. I cannot believe it. I just cannot believe it. You know that name, I stated. It was not a question. Know it. Harrison let out a short, shaky laugh. He looked up at me, his eyes wide and bright. Mr. Carter, I do not just know the name. My father was a teller at the First National Merchants Bank. He worked at this exact branch in this building from 1952 until he retired in 1985. I just stared, saying nothing. He used to come home and tell stories. Harrison continued talking fast, now the words tumbling out. Bank stories, about the people, the money. And there was one story, his favorite. The ghost story, he used to call it. The one he told me and my brother at the dinner table. He pointed a trembling finger at the wallet. The legend of the Josiah Carter Trust. My heart, which had been hammering, seemed to stop. The legend, I repeated. Yes, he said, leaning in even closer, his voice dropping. The story was that an account was opened here in 1948, right after the war, by one of the original Texas oil men, a man who bought land out west when it was just dirt and cactus, and then they struck oil, a lot of oil. He went on. But this was not a normal account. My father said it was a special trust, a dragon's egg, he called it. The legend was that the owner, Josiah Carter, set it up, and then just vanished, disappeared. No one ever heard from him again. But the account, it just sat there. For decades. No one ever touched it. No withdrawals, no deposits, and except, he paused, the ones that were rumored to be automatic. My father said the old-timers whispered that the account was tied to land leases, that money just appeared, year after year, and no one ever came to claim it. I thought of my grandfather, the quiet, hard man I barely remembered. We all thought it was a myth, Harrison said, shaking his head. A story to spook new tellers. Don't mess up or you might accidentally touch the Carter Trust. I took over as manager here 5 years ago. I've seen the archives. I know how banking works. Nothing sits for 75 years. It's impossible. It would have been escheated, turned over to the state. It had to be. I thought my father was just telling a tall tale. He looked up from the card and stared, truly stared at my face. And then you, he whispered, you walk in here. Today. Looking. I'm sorry for staring, but you look exactly like him. My father kept an old black and white photo of the original bank charter signers from 1947. Josiah Carter was in that photo. You have his eyes, his jaw. I thought I was seeing a ghost. He looked at the wallet. And you have the name, and the card, and, my God, you have the key. He turned to his computer terminal. His hands were visibly trembling as he typed in his password. But he did not open the modern, colorful Wells Fargo application. He clicked a small black icon on his desktop. A black screen with a simple flashing green cursor appeared. The deep core system. The archives. The digital vault where the bank kept its real secrets. I have to look, he whispered. I have to see if the legend is real. His fingers hovered over the keyboard. He typed JOSIAH-CARTER. He typed the account number from the card. He hit the enter key. The green cursor flashed and flashed. The silence in the office was absolute. All I could hear was my own breathing and the faint tick, tick, tick of Harrison's expensive desk clock. Then, a single line of text appeared on the black screen. Account status active. Harrison made a small choking sound in his throat. It's real, he breathed, staring at the screen. Oh my God. It's active. He looked up at me, his eyes wide and bright with a kind of manic energy. It's active. After 75 years, it should not be. It should have gone to the state. This is impossible. He turned back to the screen, his hands flying across the keyboard now. He was no longer the annoyed bank manager. He was a treasure hunter who had just found the map. The black screen filled with lines of green cryptic code. He was navigating menus I could not understand using commands that were probably older than I was. Okay, he muttered to himself. Okay, let's see what is in here. Let's see the holdings. What is it? I asked, stepping closer to the desk. Is there money in it? It is not a simple savings account, he said, squinting at the screen, scrolling past lines of code. This is not a cash balance. This is a holding. My God, it is a non-revocable custodial trust. It was set up so it could not be touched. It could only accumulate. It looks like... Yes, the original deposit was not cash. He stopped. He physically recoiled from the screen as if it had shocked him. What? I demanded, my voice rising. What is it? Harrison leaned back in his chair slowly, as if a great weight had been pressed onto his chest. He looked at me, his eyes wide with a kind of terrified awe. Mr. Carter, he said, his voice barely audible. The original asset deposited in 1948 by Josiah Carter. It was 5,000 shares of stock. Stock, I said, my heart sinking. Stock in what? Some company that went bust 50 years ago. Is it worthless? Harrison shook his head. He did not look at me. He was just staring at his screen at the words that glowed there. No, he whispered. Not some company that went bust. It was 5,000 shares. 5,000 shares of a Standard Oil of New Jersey. Harrison stared at the screen. Active. The word hung in the air of his expensive office, a word that did not belong a ghost in the machine. He looked up at me, his face pale and slick with a sudden sweat. He was not just surprised. He looked terrified. Mr. Carter, he said, his voice a low, urgent whisper. My father, he told me the legend, but he also told me why no one could ever touch it, why it was never seized by the state. He pointed a trembling finger at the old leather wallet on his desk. Not at the card, at the key. The key, he breathed. Vault 312, you have the key. It is not just a digital account, Mr. Carter. It is a physical trust. It is tied to a physical asset in this building, a safe deposit box. As long as the box remained paid for, and my God, the trust must have been paying for it, it could not be escated. It has been sitting downstairs, right under our feet, for 75 years. He stood up, grabbing his keycard. His professional calm was shattered. He looked like a man who had just found a map to a buried treasure he was not sure he wanted to find. We have to go down, now. Down where? To the sub-basement, the old vault, the First National Merchants Vault. It has not been opened in, God, maybe 40 years. It's only used for archive storage. I have never even been inside. He led me out of his office, walking fast, almost running. We did not go back through the main lobby. He led me through a locked employees-only door into a sterile service hallway and to a different elevator, a freight elevator. The ride down was silent. The air grew colder. The polished marble silence of the upper floors was replaced by the low hum of the building's machinery. The elevator doors opened with a groan onto a different world. This was not my bank. This was not Wells Fargo. This was a concrete tomb. The air was cold still and smelled overwhelmingly of old paper dust and ozone. Dim emergency lights cast long, spooky shadows. We walked down a concrete corridor, our footsteps echoing. And then I saw it. It was not a door. It was a monster. A massive circular vault door 20 feet high, made of dark, burnished steel, covered in rivets and massive locking gears. It looked like something from an old gangster movie. Harrison stopped in front of it. He looked intimidated. They do not make them like this anymore, he whispered. He went to a small, dusty panel on the wall. He swiped his modern keycard. A light beeped. Then he pulled a huge, old-fashioned skeleton key from his pocket and inserted it into a lock I had not even seen. He turned the key, then pulled a massive steel lever. There was a sound of grinding metal, a deep, heavy groan as if a giant was waking up. The massive circular door moved slowly, scraping against the floor. It opened just enough for us to slip inside. Inside, it was pitch black. Harrison pulled out his phone using the flashlight app. The beam cut through the darkness. It revealed rows and rows of small, brass-fronted boxes set into the concrete walls floor to ceiling. Each one had a small, numbered plaque. The air was thick with dust. 312, Harrison said, his voice muffled in the dead air. He ran his light along the rows. 310, 311, here. He stopped at a small brass door about the size of a shoebox. It was tarnished green with age and covered in a thick gray layer of undisturbed dust. Vault 312, he looked at me. This is the procedure. It requires 2 keys. The bank's master key. He inserted his own key into one lock and turned it. And the customer's key. He stepped back. This was it. The moment. My hand was trembling. The $500 in my pocket felt meaningless. Rick Shaw's mocking face, Cynthia's laughter. It all faded. There was only this. I stepped forward. I took the small, ornate brass key from my grandfather's wallet. The key that Cynthia and Rick thought was junk. The key that had survived 75 years in a tin box. I slid it into the second lock. It fit. It fit perfectly. I turned it. A loud, solid, satisfying click echoed in the silent vault. Harrison let out the breath he had been holding. He reached forward and pulled the small door open. Inside was a long, narrow metal box, black and heavy-looking. He slid it out. It was heavy. "Let's go," he said. We did not speak on the ride back up. We just carried the box between us. When we got back to his brightly lit modern office, the contrast was jarring. He placed the heavy metal box on his polished mahogany desk. It looked ancient, an artifact from a forgotten time. It was embossed with the faint, faded gold script, First National Merchants Bank. He lifted the lid. The smell of history of dry, brittle paper and old ink wafted out. And inside, my God, inside. On top, there was an envelope. Thick, creamy paper yellowed with age. On the front, in my grandfather's sharp, familiar black ink handwriting, was one word. Benjamin. Not to my heir. Not to whom it may concern. My name. My name. It was as if he knew, as if he had known 75 years ago that I would be the one to open it. Underneath the letter, my heart stopped. It was packed full. Stacks and stacks of them tied with old cloth ribbons. Thick, heavy paper beautifully engraved with pictures of oil rigs and steam trains. Stock certificates. "These," Harrison whispered, touching one with a reverent finger. "These are the physical shares. The original 5,000, but there are more here. Gulf Oil Corporation, Texas Land and Cattle Company. My God, Josiah owned half of Texas." I did not hear him. I was staring at the envelope. My name. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely open it. The paper was brittle, and it cracked slightly as I unfolded the letter inside. "My boy," it began. "My dearest Benjamin, if you are reading this, it means two things. First, I am long gone. And second, you are in the kind of trouble that only money can fix. I am sorry for that. You probably think I was just a mechanic. I was. But I also owned land. I bought a patch of dirt in West Texas when it was good for nothing but rattlesnakes. Then they found oil. They wanted to buy me out. I told them no. I never trusted cash. Cash can be stolen. Cash can be inflated. So I took shares instead. Standard Oil. But even stocks can fail, boy. There is only one thing that lasts: the land, the dirt itself. I set up this trust. The bank account, you found the one on the card. That is where the stock dividends go. It is a checking account. But this box holds the real prize. Inside you will find the original stock certificates, but you will also find the deeds to the land. And more importantly, you will find the permanent mineral rights and royalty contracts. I set it up so the oil royalties are paid directly into the dividend account. The account is set up to automatically reinvest all dividends and all royalties into more stock. It is a dragon eating its own tail, boy. A monster I built designed to grow forever. I set this up so only Carter blood could claim it. Do not touch it unless you have lost everything. If you are here, it means you have. They thought you were weak, did they not? They thought you were just a clueless old man. Go show them what the Carters are made of. Harrison and I stood in his office, the heavy black metal box sitting on his polished desk like an artifact from another world. The air was thick with the smell of old paper and dust. Harrison was silent. He just watched me. He knew this was not his moment. This was mine. My eyes were fixed on the envelope. It was thick, creamy paper yellowed at the edges like old ivory. On the front, in sharp black fountain pen ink, was a single word. Benjamin. Not to my heir. Not to whom it may concern. My name. My name. It was as if he knew, as if he had known 75 years ago that I would be the one to open it. My hands were shaking. I had faced down contractors, city inspectors, and multi-million-dollar lawsuits without flinching. But my hands trembled as I lifted the envelope. The paper was brittle, and it made a faint cracking sound as I unfolded the single page inside. I began to read. The words were not just ink on a page. I could almost hear them in his voice, that deep, quiet, no-nonsense drawl I barely remembered from my childhood. My boy, it began. My dearest Benjamin, if you are reading this, it means two things. First, that I am long gone, and second, that you are in the kind of trouble that only money can fix. For that, I am truly sorry. Life should not have cornered you this way. You probably think I was just a simple man. I was. But I was not a foolish one. In 1946, I took every penny I had and I bought a patch of dirt out in West Texas, land no one wanted. It was good for nothing but rattlesnakes and scrub brush. Your grandmother told me I was crazy. Maybe I was. Then in 1947, they found oil. A sea of it, right under my rattlesnakes. The big companies came knocking. They wanted to buy me out. They offered me cash, a lot of it, enough to make me a rich man. But I told them no. I never trusted cash, boy. Cash can be stolen. Cash can be inflated. Cash disappears. It is just paper. So I took shares instead. Standard Oil of New Jersey. 5,000 shares. It was a good deal. But even stocks can fail, boy. Companies run by weak men go bust. There is only one thing that lasts. The land. The dirt itself. No one can print more of it. So I made a different deal. I set up this trust. The bank account you found, the one on that old paper card. That is just the checking account. That is where the stock dividends go. It is the milk. But this box holds the cow. My eyes scanned down the page, my heart pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. Inside you will find the original stock certificates, the 5,000 shares. But you will also find other stocks I bought with that land. Gulf Oil, Texas Land and Cattle Company. But even those are not the real prize. Look for the legal binders. You will find the deeds to all that land. And more importantly, you will find the permanent mineral rights and royalty contracts. Here is the part you must understand, Benjamin. I made a deal with the oil men. They could drill on my land, but they would pay me a royalty, a percentage of every single barrel they pulled out of my dirt, forever. And here is the monster I built. I set it up so those oil royalties are paid directly automatically into that bank account. And the account is set up to automatically, without question, reinvest all dividends and all royalties into more stock, more Standard Oil. It is a dragon eating its own tail, boy. A monster I built designed to grow forever all by itself in the dark, fed by the black gold in the ground and the dividends in the market, a fortune that feeds itself. I set this up so only Carter blood could claim it. With this key, and with your face, I told the bank my heir would have my eyes. I see you do. I looked up at Harrison. He was pale, nodding slowly. He understood. I looked back at the letter. Do not touch it unless you have lost everything. Do not be a fool and live off this. Live your own life. Build your own worth. This is not a gift. It is a fortress. It is a weapon. It is for the day when the wolves are at your door. If you are reading this, it means that day has come. I am sorry I am not there to help you fight, but this will. They thought you were weak, did they not? They thought you were just a clueless old man, easy to push aside. I know the look. I have seen it my whole life. Go show them what the Carters are made of. Go show them what we are. We are not the Thunder Boy. We are the earth. We do not break, and we endure. I folded the letter. My hands were perfectly steady now. The cold, sick dread I had lived with for months was gone. The rage from the pawn shop was gone. They were replaced by something else. A foundation. A bedrock of absolute cold, hard certainty. I was not a homeless old man in a bank. I was the master of a monster, and I was about to let it out of its cage. I folded the letter. My hands were perfectly steady now. The cold, sick dread I had lived with for months was gone. The rage from the pawn shop was gone. They were replaced by something else. A foundation. A bedrock of absolute, cold, hard certainty. I was not a homeless old man. I was the master of a monster, and I was about to let it out of its cage. I looked up at Harrison. He was still staring at the letter in my hand. "A dragon," he whispered. He called it a dragon. He was not wrong. Suddenly, his professional demeanor snapped back into place, but it was frantic electric. He lunged for his desk phone, his hand shaking. "Get legal on the line. Get me Sarah Bishop. Get me the head of estates and trusts. Now. I do not care what meeting she is in. Tell her the Josiah Carter Trust has been claimed." He slammed the phone down and turned to his computer, his fingers flying. He was not in the green screen archive anymore. He was on the modern interface, pulling up stock tickers, financial portals, property databases. "Mr. Carter." "Ben," he said, not looking at me. "Do you understand what this letter means? The Standard Oil stock, the dividends, the reinvestment plan, for 75 years. He typed in the number of shares from the certificates in the box, adding them to the number from the digital account. He did the math on the stock splits. One split, then another, and another. "My God," he breathed. "The splits alone. The dividend reinvestment. 5,000 shares in 1948, after 7 splits. Do you know how many shares of ExxonMobil you own today?" He did not wait for an answer. It's over 700,000 shares. 700,000. He looked at the ticker. At today's market price, that's 48 million dollars. He said the number like it physically hurt him. $48 million. Just sitting here. Accumulating. I just stood there. The number was meaningless. It was too big. It was cartoon money. 48 millions, I repeated, tasting the words. "But that is not all," he said, his voice getting higher. He was frantic now, pulling the other documents from the box. He unrolled a thick, bound contract. The royalty contracts. He said they were paid into the account. He scanned the legal document. "This one. It's with Gulf Oil. That's Chevron now. They were paying royalties. But," he said, the account was IM. He raced back to the archive screen. He typed in more commands. "Oh God. Look. The deposits. They're regular. Every quarter. Until 2010. They just stop." "What does that mean?" I asked, my voice cold. "It means," Harrison said, his eyes wide, "that when the bank was bought out again, the account was probably flagged as dormant. The bank stopped accepting the deposits. The oil company, Chevron, has just been holding your money. They have been trying to pay you, but they could not. They owe you 15 years of royalty payments." He grabbed a calculator. 15 years, at the rate listed here, plus interest. We are talking $25 million, at least, in back pay, just sitting in their accounts waiting for you. I felt my legs buckle. I grabbed the back of the leather chair. 48 million. 25 million. It was not real. And the land. Harrison said, his voice now just a hoarse whisper. He was holding the original deeds. The land itself, he kept the land, the oil companies were just leasing it. He typed the parcel numbers from the deeds into a county appraisal database. He stared at the screen. "Mr. Carter," he said, turning to look at me, his face completely white, as if he had seen a ghost. "The oil, that was just the beginning. This land, this parcel, out in West Texas. Do you know what they found there 5 years ago?" "Oil," I said. "No," Harrison whispered. "Something better. Something worth more than oil. They found one of the largest deposits of rare earth minerals outside of China. Lithium, gallium, terbium. The things that run our phones, our computers, our electric cars." He spun the monitor around to face me. "This is not just empty dirt, Ben. This is one of the most valuable pieces of real estate on the planet." What is it worth? Worth? Harrison let out that shaky, wild laugh again. I cannot even estimate it. The mineral rights alone are easily $100 million, maybe more. He stood up. He walked to the window and looked out over the city. Let's add this up," he said, his voice cracking. $48 million in stock, $25 million in back pay royalties, and $100 million in land and mineral rights. He turned to face me. $173 million. "Mr. Carter, you are not just rich. You are one of the wealthiest men in the state of Texas." The room was silent. I just stood there. I thought of the 7-Eleven. I thought of the insufficient funds message. I thought of the $500 in my pocket. I thought of Rick Shaw's mocking smile. I stood there in Harrison's office, the number hanging in the air. $173 million. Harrison was on the phone, his voice sharp. "Yes, Sarah, the entire legal team. In my office, now." He hung up and looked at me, his face still pale. "Mr. Carter. Ben. This is the discovery of a lifetime. The legal team will handle the transfer. It will take a few weeks. Documents, probates, tax implications." "I do not have a few weeks," I said. My voice was flat. It was cold. It surprised even me. The old shuffling, desperate man who had walked into this bank an hour ago was gone. Harrison stopped talking. He looked at me, really looked at me, and saw the change. "I need money," I said. "Not in a few weeks. I need it now." "Now," he stammered. "Ben, a transfer of this size. We cannot just—" "You are the manager of this branch," I said, my voice like ice. "You have a man in your office who, by your own admission, is one of the single largest stakeholders in a company this bank certainly does business with. You have my grandfather's key. You have my face. You have my DNA. I am not asking. I am telling you. I need an advance. A line of credit against this trust. Today." I thought of Rick Shaw's mocking smile. The Maserati. The pawn shop. "I need $100,000, I said. "In my account. In the next hour." Harrison stared at me. The last trace of awe was gone, replaced by professional respect. He saw the clueless old man was gone. He saw the man who had built a $15 million empire from nothing. He saw Josiah Carter's grandson. He nodded, slowly. "Yes, Mr. Carter. Of course. 100,000. I can authorize a personal credit line against the confirmed assets immediately." He picked up the phone. "Jessica, get me the private banking manager, now, and bring him to my office." An hour later, I walked out of that bank. I was not the same man who had walked in. I was still wearing the same damp clothes, but I was not wet. I was not cold. I was not hungry. I had a new debit card in my wallet, a black card. It had $100,000 on it. It was a start. I did not go back to the motel. I did not go to the library to get my old suitcase. I walked to a high-end hotel I had only seen from the outside. I booked the best suite they had. I stood in the room on the 30th floor looking out over the entire city of Austin. Then I took out my phone. My fingers were perfectly steady. I dialed Emily. She picked up on the first ring, her voice frantic. "Dad, are you okay?" "I'm at the airport in Florida. I did not know who else to call. I'm so scared." "What are we going to do?" "Stop," I said. My voice was calm. "I am fine, honey. I am better than fine." "Dad, you sound different." "I am different. Now listen to me. I need you to do exactly as I say. Do not get on your plane back to Austin. Go to the ticket counter." "What, Dad, I have to—" "The school." "Forget the school, Emily. Go to the counter and book 2 first-class tickets to Grand Cayman, the next available flight." There was a long silence. The Caymans, Dad, that's where they are. I do not have the money for that." "I do," I said. I looked at the new black card in my hand. "I will text you the credit card number. Book 2 tickets, one for you and one for me. I am flying out of Austin to meet you in Miami. We will fly to Grand Cayman together." "Dad, I do not understand. What are we going to do? Are we going to confront them? We have no power. They have all the money." And I looked out the window. I thought of the dragon my grandfather had built. I thought of $173 million. "They think they have all the money, honey," I said. "They are wrong. You said your mother wanted a yacht. That's good, because we are about to go see it. $173 million. Harrison finally seemed to snap back to his professional self. He grabbed his phone. "Sarah, yes, it's me. I told you it was an emergency. I need you. I need the entire legal team. Now. In my office. No, I am not kidding. I am looking at a man who just inherited, and I am not exaggerating, over $170 million from a 75-year-old dormant trust. And I think he is about to have some very serious questions for his former financial managers." The flight to Miami was fast. The connecting flight to Grand Cayman was faster. Emily met me at the Miami gate. She had not seen me in 3 months. She stopped dead and just stared. She was expecting the broken old man from the motel, the man in the damp jacket, the man who had given up. She was not expecting this. I had used the bank's $100,000 advance. The suit was Loro Piana, navy blue silk and wool. It cost $10,000, and it felt like armor. The shoes were Italian leather, polished so bright I could see the airport lights reflected in them. I had a proper haircut from the best barber in Austin. I had a clean, close shave. I was not Ben Carter, the victim. I was Josiah Carter's grandson. "Dad," she whispered, tears welling in her eyes. "You look, I feel like myself, honey," I said. "For the first time in a long time. Let's go. We have a dinner reservation to crash." The restaurant was called Blue. It was the kind of place they build for people who believe money is an abstract concept. It was open air, built on a cliff overlooking the dark Caribbean. The waves crashed softly on the rocks below. The air smelled like salt, jasmine, and expensive perfume. Emily was nervous. Her hands were trembling. "Dad, are you sure about this? What if they just call security? They're at the Ritz-Carlton. They can do anything here." "Let them," I said. My voice was calm. The rage I felt at the pawn shop had cooled. It had settled into something hard and heavy and patient. The maitre d' looked up as we entered. His eyes flickered over my suit, my shoes, my watch. He did not see a homeless old man. He recognized the quality. He saw power. He gave a small, respectful bow. "Good evening, sir. Do you have a reservation?" "No," I said, my voice smooth. I'm joining the party at the corner table, the one on the terrace. I pointed, and there they were. They were sitting at the best table in the house, the one on the point, isolated, surrounded by the ocean on three sides. They were celebrating. Rick had his arm draped casually over the back of Cynthia's chair. A silver bucket of champagne was sweating beside them. They were laughing. Cynthia threw her head back, that carefree laugh I had not heard in years, the laugh I had paid for. They were toasting, celebrating my demise. We started walking across the stone terrace. The sound of our shoes was quiet. Cynthia was the first to see me. She was in the middle of raising her champagne flute to her lips. She froze. Her eyes went wide. The color, that beautiful, expensive tan she had gotten on my money, drained from her face. She looked like she had seen a ghost. She looked like she had seen a man she had buried. The champagne flute, the delicate crystal glass, slipped from her fingers. It hit the stone terrace and shattered with a sharp, expensive crash that echoed in the quiet restaurant. Rick, annoyed at the interruption, turned in his chair. "Cynthia, what the hell?" His words died in his throat. His smug, satisfied smile vanished. His jaw went slack. He just stared. "Ben," Cynthia whispered. The word was a dry, terrified croak. "Ben, how did you... What are you doing here?" I did not stop walking until I was standing right at their table. I looked at the shattered glass on the floor. I looked at the puddle of champagne. "You spilled your drink, Cynthia," I said. I pulled out a chair for Emily. She sat. I pulled out a chair for myself. I sat down, smoothing the front of my jacket. I looked at the sweating bottle of Dom Perignon. A 2008. Nice choice. An excellent year. I looked at them. "I hope you're using my $15 million well." Rick found his voice first. It was not smooth. It was a low, venomous hiss. "You," he spat. "You are not supposed to be here. How did you get here? Are you following us?" "No, Rick," I said. I signaled the waiter. The maitre d' himself was now rushing over, his face a mask of panic. Is there a problem, sir?" he asked, looking at the broken glass. "No problem at all," I said, smiling at him. "Just a small spill. My wife is just startled to see me. Please bring another glass. And a bottle of your best scotch. Macallan 25 if you have it." The maitre d' nodded, relieved, and hurried away. I turned back to them. Rick was staring at me, his mind racing. He was a shark, and he was trying to figure out where the blood was coming from. "I'm not following you, Rick," I said. "I'm here on business. I was just in Texas. A little trip. I was reviewing my mineral rights." They just stared, confused. "It's a fascinating business, really." I continued, enjoying the look of utter confusion on their faces. "You wouldn't believe the kinds of contracts they wrote back in 1948. Very ironclad. They really hold up." I leaned forward. The smile was gone from my face. "Hello, Cynthia. Rick. Now, let's talk about my $15 million. Rick recovered. Just like that. The shock was gone and the arrogance flooded back in. He actually laughed. A short, ugly, dismissive bark. "Your 15 million, he scoffed. "You have no 15 million, old man. You have nothing. You signed the trust. You signed it all away. The court agreed. It's over." He snapped his fingers at the approaching maitre d'. "Security. I want this man removed. Now. He is not part of our party. He is trespassing. He is harassing us." "I would not do that if I were you, Rick," I said, my voice still quiet. "Oh, you wouldn't?" Rick sneered, leaning across the table. "And why is that? What are you going to do?" "Yell at me. You're a broke, senile old fool who just lost his house. You have no power here." "I know," I said. "I know I lost my house. It sold for 7.2 million. A little low, I thought, but I guess you were in a hurry. You needed the down payment for the Lady C." Cynthia made a small, choking sound. Rick's smile twitched. How did you know that name?" "And I know." I continued ignoring him, that the rest of my 15 million minus your commission is sitting in an account at Credit Suisse in Zurich. Account number. I recited the number Emily had overheard. It's a lovely setup, very clean, very illegal. Rick's face was not tan anymore. It was white. The arrogance vanished, replaced by pure, cold panic. You're bluffing. You can't possibly. Can't I said. I know about the condo you bought here at the Ritz in Cynthia's name. I know about the wire transfers you routed through 3 different shell companies to hide the tracks. I know about the kickback you gave to Matthew to run interference. I know everything, Rick. Cynthia was not just pale. She was hyperventilating. Ben, please. Ben. It was a mistake. We can fix this. A mistake. I finally looked at her. My wife of 45 years. The mother of my children. Calling me a clueless old fool while you drank my champagne, was that a mistake, or was it just the truth finally coming out? Rick stood up, knocking his chair over with a clatter. You have no proof, none. It's just the ramblings of a bitter old man, hearsay. You have nothing. He's right, Rick. Dad doesn't have the proof. A new voice. We all turned. Matthew. My son. He was standing at the entrance of the terrace wearing a simple dark suit. He looked pale, but he was standing straight. Cynthia let out a cry of pure, unadulterated relief. Matthew. Oh, thank God, Matthew, tell your father. Tell him he's confused. Tell him he's wrong. Fix this. Matthew walked slowly toward the table. He did not look at his mother. He did not look at Rick. He looked at me. Dad is wrong, Matthew said, his voice quiet. He doesn't have the proof. Rick let out a huge, shaky sigh. He started to smile again, that victory smirk. See, Ben, your own son. I have it, Matthew said. Rick's smile froze. What? Matthew turned and looked at Rick. His old boss. The man he had admired. I said I have it. I've been your paralegal for 2 years, Rick. I have your logins. I have your passwords. I have a complete backup of every email, every wire transfer order, every fake invoice you created to justify the liquidation. He pulled a small silver flash drive from his jacket pocket and placed it gently on the table right next to the puddle of champagne. It is all right here, Rick. Everything. Including the recordings of you coaching me on what to say to my father about the market crash. Yuanthina made a small gagging sound. Matthew, Rick hissed. His voice was a desperate, strangling whisper. What are you doing? You're in on this. You're destroying yourself, you idiot. No, Matthew said. I am saving myself. He finally looked at me and I saw tears in his eyes. And I am trying to save my father. He pulled out his phone. And the FBI agents who are waiting for you at the airport. They are very, very interested in everything on this drive. Rick's world, his entire universe of arrogance and $5,000 suits, collapsed in on itself in that one silent moment. He stared at the flash drive. He stared at Matthew's recording phone. He stared at me. He was a shark suffocating on dry land. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Cynthia just made a low, wailing sound in the back of her throat. No, 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 Matthew, you did not. You would not. I did, Matthew said, his voice hard. It's done. The maitre d' was approaching again, this time with 2 large men in hotel security uniforms. Sir, he said to Rick, you asked me to remove this man. But it seems, it's fine, I said, my voice calm. I stood up. They were just leaving. They have a plane to catch. Rick looked at me. The hatred in his eyes was pure, undiluted. It was the look of a cornered animal. He snatched his jacket. You will regret this, old man, he hissed. You, all of you. He grabbed Cynthia's arm. Come on, we're leaving. I... I can't, she whimpered, unable to move. Now! He screamed. He dragged her from the table. They ran. They did not walk. They ran through the beautiful candle-lit restaurant, past the staring faces of the other diners. Emily looked at me, her face pale. Dad? The FBI was that. Was that true? I have no idea, I said. I picked up my Macallan 25 and took a sip. But we are about to find out. Matthew was already on the phone. Yes, this is Carter. They are on the move, heading for the main entrance. We found out. They did not even make it out of the hotel lobby. We watched from the restaurant terrace as two men in dark suits who were definitely not hotel security intercepted them by the grand floral display. It was quiet. It was professional. It was devastating. We saw them speaking. We saw Rick protesting, gesticulating wildly. We saw one of the men show him a badge. We saw Rick's shoulders slump. We saw Cynthia just collapse. She just folded onto the marble floor, sobbing. It was over. The weeks that followed were a blur of lawyers' depositions and headlines. It turned out Matthew had not been bluffing. He had spent the last 2 months, ever since he first suspected Rick was using my name, without my permission, meticulously copying everything. When he heard Emily's call about the yacht, he knew it was time. He bought a burner phone and called the FBI's white-collar crime division from the airport. Rick Shaw was charged with wire fraud, aggravated identity theft, and conspiracy to commit money laundering. His arrogance returned briefly in court. He tried to claim I was a senile old man who had approved everything and then forgotten. He tried to claim Matthew was a disgruntled employee. But then came the flash drive. The jury saw the emails. They heard the recordings. They saw the intricate web of shell corporations he had built to siphon my $15 million. They saw the forged wire transfer authorizations. They saw the receipt for the Lady C yacht. And they heard the recording from Rick's office, the one Matthew had captured, where Rick laughed and called me a clueless old fool who was better off dead. The jury was out for 45 minutes. Rick was found guilty on all counts. I was there for his sentencing. He wore an ill-fitting suit, not one of his custom ones. His tan was gone. He looked gray. The judge looked down at him. Mr. Shaw, you did not just steal money. You destroyed a family. You abused your position of trust as an attorney. And you attempted to frame an innocent man, your client's father, for your own despicable crimes. He was sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. 15 years. One for every million he stole. Cynthia was a different story. The moment those agents put her in handcuffs, she broke. She turned on Rick instantly. She sang like a canary. She told them everything. About the accounts. About the condo in Cayman. About the lies. About how Rick had manipulated her and how she had let him. She testified against him. Her testimony combined with Matthew's evidence was what sealed Rick's fate. Because of her cooperation, and because Matthew, who received full immunity, spoke on her behalf, she was spared prison. But she was not spared justice. The judge sentenced her to 5 years of strict probation. But the real sentence, the one that I knew would destroy her, was financial. She was ordered to pay full restitution for her half of the fraud. Every single asset she owned was seized. The Cayman condo was sold. Her jewelry was auctioned. The Lady C was impounded by the U.S. Marshals and sold for pennies on the dollar. Every designer dress, every expensive shoe, every piece of art she had bought with my money, all of it was clawed back. Cynthia, my wife of 45 years, who had betrayed me for a life of luxury, was left with exactly what I had when I walked into that 7-Eleven. Nothing. She was left with a single, small, court-approved checking account and her own shame. Rick lost his freedom. Cynthia lost the reason she had done it all in the first place. I did not know which one was a more fitting punishment. The legal victory was one thing. The money was another. $15 million does not just reappear in your checking account with a judge's signature. Rick and Cynthia had hidden it, tangled it, and spent it. My new team, led by Mr. Harrison from the bank and Robert Sanford, the financial advisor Stephen had recommended, went to work. They were not just lawyers. They were sharks, but now they were my sharks. They went after the $7.2 million from my lake house sale first. Most of it was tied up in the Lady C yacht. The U.S. Marshals seized the boat. It was sold at auction. We only got back about $6 million after all the fees, but it was a start. The condo in Grand Cayman, which Cynthia had put in her name, was sold next. That brought back another $1.2 million. The hardest part was Switzerland. Rick had moved the remaining $6 million into a numbered account in Zurich, thinking it was untouchable. But he made a mistake. He had used the Carter Family Trust as the legal entity to open the account. And now I was the Carter Family Trust. With the U.S. court order in hand, my lawyers working with international banking attorneys filed an emergency injunction. It took 3 months. 3 months of legal battles fought across oceans. 3 months of me sitting in my new clean apartment, waiting. Finally, Robert Sanford called me. "Ben," he said, his voice calm. "The wire transfer just cleared. The Swiss authorities released the funds. It's here." I went to the bank. Not the old branch, but the private wealth management office downtown. Robert met me in a quiet room that looked nothing like a bank. He slid a single piece of paper across the polished wood table. It was a bank statement. Account holder Benjamin Carter. Balance $14,100,812. We had not recovered all of it. Rick and Cynthia had burned through almost $1 million in just a few months. On champagne. On lawyers. On that Maserati. But we had recovered the vast majority. $14 million. My life's work. It was back. I just stared at the number. It was less than the money my grandfather had left me. It was strange. This $14 million, which I had bled and sweat for over 45 years, almost seemed small compared to the miracle from the vault. But it was not small. It was mine. It was the proof. The proof that I had won. I had taken back my life. I looked at Robert. "Good," I said, my voice steady. "Now, let's talk about what we are going to do with it." The flight from Austin to Midland was short. We rented a black Escalade at the airport. It still felt strange using the black card Harrison had given me, the kind that makes no sound when you swipe it, the kind that makes cashiers look at you with a different kind of respect. We drove south for 2 hours. The green rolling hills of Austin faded in the rearview mirror, replaced by something else. The land flattened. The trees disappeared. The sky got bigger. It was just endless, flat brown scrubland interrupted only by the rhythmic rise and fall of oil pump jacks like giant metal insects bowing to the earth. The silence in the car was heavy. Emily sat in the passenger seat, looking out the window, her hands clasped in her lap. Matthew sat in the back. He had not said more than 10 words since I picked him up from the small apartment he now lived in. This was the first time the three of us had been in an enclosed space together since before. I had paid for his therapy. I had paid for his legal bills to ensure his immunity in exchange for his testimony. I had done my duty as a father, but I still did not know if I could look at him and see my son. I saw a traitor, a weak boy who had taken a commission to help his mother and her lover destroy his own father. I pulled the Escalade off the highway onto a rattling gravel road and then onto a dirt track. I followed the coordinates on my grandfather's old deed. Finally, I stopped. I got out of the car. The wind hit me instantly. It was not a breeze. It was a solid, relentless force blowing dust and grit that stung my face. There was no sound but that wind, a low, mournful howl across an ocean of dirt. Emily and Matthew got out and stood beside me. "So," Emily said, her voice almost stolen by the wind, "this is it. This is grandfather's land." I nodded. "This is it." "It's huge," she said. squinting toward the horizon. There was no horizon, just more flat brown earth. What are those things? She pointed to the distant rhythmic bobbing of the derricks. That, I said, is chevron. That's the dragon's tail. That's the royalty payment. That's the monster my grandfather built. Black gold, coming out of our dirt. I could see Matthew flinch. He knew what was coming. He knew why I had brought him here. The final judgment. Emily turned to me, her eyes clear and honest. She was the only one I had left, the only one who had been true. So what are you going to do, Dad, with all of this? The money, the land, everything. Are you going to retire, go on a cruise? I laughed. The sound was ripped from my mouth by the wind. Retire, honey, I have been retired. I tried it. It nearly killed me. I looked out at the vast, empty expanse. It was not pretty. It was harsh. It was desolate. But it was real. It was the truest thing I had seen in years. I thought about the $14 million I had just recovered from Rick and Cynthia, the money I had earned over 45 years. Then I thought about the $173 million that had been waiting for me multiplying in the dark, a gift from a man I barely knew. Josiah found his fortune under the ground, I said, kicking at the hard, dry dirt. He found black oil, but he missed the biggest resource. He missed the one thing this land has more of than anywhere else on Earth. Emily looked confused. What? I pointed up. The sun. It was not the gentle Austin sun. It was a white, brutal, relentless fire in the sky. There was not a single cloud. There was nothing to stop it. I'm too old to build condos, Emily, I said. Rick and your mother. They stole my past. They stole my Austin real estate business. Maybe they did me a favor. I am not selling this land, I said. I am keeping every single acre, and I am going to use Josiah's oil money to kill the oil business. Dad, I am founding a new company, Carter Renewables. We are going to build the largest solar farm in the state of Texas, right here, on this worthless dirt. We are going to use Josiah's legacy to build the legacy. He found energy under the ground. We are going to find it in the sky. I finally turned to look at Matthew. He was standing apart, his head down, looking at his own feet. He finally spoke. His voice was hoarse, rough. That's amazing, Dad. I walked over to him. He tensed like he expected me to hit him. I just looked him in the eye. You think so, Matthew? Yes. It's visionary. It's good. Good, I said. Because you are going to help. Emily looked at me shocked. Dad? Matthew looked up, his eyes wide, confused. What, Dad? I thought. I do not expect anything. You thought I would just give you money, I said, my voice hard. You thought you would get an executive office that all is forgiven. No, sir, he whispered, looking back at the ground. I do not expect anything. I deserve nothing. You are right, I said. You deserve nothing. You betrayed me, Matthew. You took a commission to sell out your own father. You forfeited your inheritance. The money, Josiah's money, my money, that is gone. You will not see a single dime of it. He flinched as if I had slapped him, but he nodded. I understand. But, I said, and my voice softened just a little, you are my son, and my father's letter. It was not just about money. It was about what we are made of. It was about redemption. It was about building. I will not let you become Rick Shaw. I will not let you be a failure. I will not let you be what they turned you into. He looked up, tears streaming down his face, mixing with the dust. You will not work for Carter Renewables, I said. That is my company. Your sister will run that. Emily gasped. Dad, I'm a teacher. You are a Carter, I said. You are smart. You are loyal. You will learn. You will be the CEO. I turned back to Matthew. You will work for the other company. Other company, he whispered. Yes, the new Carter Family Foundation. I am taking the $14.1 million I recovered from those thieves, the money they stole, and I am using it to start a fund. Its mission will be simple, providing free legal and financial aid to elderly people, people who are being abused by their families, people who are being kicked out of their homes, people like I was. I looked at Emily. You will be the chairwoman of the board of that too. Then I looked at Matthew. And you will be its first employee. Dad, you will not be a manager. You will not be an executive. You will be a paralegal. You will answer the phones. You will file the paperwork. You will listen to old scared people cry about how their children are robbing them. You will work 60 hours a week and you will earn minimum wage. And you will learn from the ground up what it means to help people, instead of robbing them. I stood there letting the wind whip at my jacket. And maybe, after a few years, maybe you will earn your way back. Not to the money, but to this family. Matthew did not say anything. He just stood there crying, silent, heavy tears that cut tracks through the dust on his face. He did not make an excuse. He did not beg. He just nodded. Yes, sir, he choked out. Yes, sir. Thank you, Dad. Thank you. I put one arm around Emily and my other arm around my son, and the three of us stood there on that vast, empty land. It was not empty. It was full of promise. It was the future. Emily looked at me, her eyes shielding against the relentless wind. She had to raise her voice to be heard over it. So what are you going to do, Dad? She asked. With all of this? The money, the land, everything. Are you just going to retire for real this time? Go on a cruise? You deserve it. I laughed. The sound was ripped from my mouth by the wind and carried east. Retire, I said. Honey, I already tried that. I sat by the lake, I played golf, I drank expensive whiskey, and all it did was make me a soft target. It made me a clueless old man. No, I am done retiring. I looked out at the vast, empty expanse. It was not pretty. It was harsh, desolate, and flat. But it was real. It was the truest thing I had seen in years. I pointed to the bobbing pump jacks on the horizon, the ones sucking black gold from my grandfather's dirt. That, I said, that is the past. That is Josiah's legacy. Then I pointed up to the sky. The sun was a white, brutal, relentless fire. There was not a single cloud. There was nothing to stop it. And that, I said, is the future. That is our legacy. Emily looked confused. Dad, I do not understand. The money. I said, thinking of the numbers that still did not feel real. The 48 million in Exxon stock. The 25 million in back pay royalties from Chevron. I am going to take all of it. I am going to sell the shares. I am going to collect that debt. I am going to liquidate every last drop of Josiah's oil money. You are going to cash out? She asked, surprised. Yes, I am going to cash it all out. It is the seed money. It is the fuel. But this land. I stomped my foot on the hard-packed dirt. I am keeping every single acre. $100 million worth of dirt and minerals. I am not selling it. I am using it. Emily just stared at me. Using it for what? I am a builder, Emily. That is all I have ever been. Rick and Cynthia, they stole my company. They stole my properties. Maybe they did me a favor. They forced me to stop building condos for rich people. I took a deep breath. The wind felt good. It felt clean. I am founding a new company, I said. This week. It is called Carter Renewables. Carter Renewables. That is right. We are going to use the $73 million from Josiah's oil money to kill the oil business. We are going to take this $100 million piece of land, this flat, sun-baked desert, and we are going to build the largest, most advanced solar farm in the state of Texas. Right here. I swept my arm across the horizon. Can you see it, honey? Not pump jacks, not rigs, but acres, miles, of clean, silent blue glass. All of it angled right at that sun. All of it pumping pure, clean energy into the grid. I turned to her, my heart pounding with a purpose I thought I had lost forever. Your grandfather found his energy under the ground. He found black oil. But he missed the biggest resource. He missed the one thing this land has more of than anywhere else on Earth: the sun. We are not going to be oil barons, Emily. We are going to be pioneers. We are going to use the past to build the future. That is what we are going to do with this money. Emily was speechless. Her eyes were shining. She was not looking at a broke old man anymore. She was looking at her father. Dad, she whispered. That is, it is a lot of work, I said. It is the biggest build of my life. And I am 70 years old. I cannot do it alone. I need a CEO. A CEO? Yes, someone I can trust. Someone with a good mind. Someone who is loyal. Someone who knows how to manage a project. But Dad, she said, I am a teacher. You are a carter, I said, putting my hand on her shoulder. You are smart. You are tough. And you are the only person on this planet I trust with this. You will learn. I will teach you. You are going to run this company. She just stared at me, the wind whipping her hair across her face. She was not crying. She was smiling. A slow, strong, powerful smile. I looked out at the land again. I was not a victim. I was not a retiree. I was a builder. And I had just found my final project. I turned from Emily, whose face was a mixture of shock and dawning excitement. I looked at Matthew. He was still standing apart, his head bowed, his shoulders slumped. He looked like a broken man. He had not moved. He had not spoken. He was just waiting for the final judgment. I walked over to him. He tensed as if he expected me to hit him. He would have deserved it. I just looked him in the eye. You think Carter Renewables is a good idea, Matthew? I asked, my voice quiet. He nodded, not meeting my gaze. Yes, Dad. It's visionary. It's good. Good, I said. Because you will have absolutely nothing to do with it. You will never have a key. You will never have an office. You will not be on the board. He flinched as if I had slapped him. I understand, he whispered. No, I do not think you do, I said, my voice hard. You betrayed me, Matthew. You took a commission. You took 30 pieces of silver to sell out your own father. You forfeited your inheritance. The money, Josiah's money, my money, that is gone for you. You will not see a single dime of it. You will not touch the solar farm. You will not touch the profits. That is your punishment. He just nodded, tears starting to stream down his face, mixing with the dust. He was accepting it. But, I said, and my voice softened just a little, you are my son. And my father's letter, it was not just about money. It was about what we are made of. It was about building. I will not let you become Rick Shaw. I will not let you be a failure. I will not let you be what they turned you into. He finally looked up, his eyes wide and confused. Dad, you will not work for me, I said. You will work for Emily. Emily looked at me shocked. Dad, I am taking the $14.1 million I recovered from those thieves, the money they stole, and I am using it to start a new foundation. It will be called the Carter Family Foundation. Its mission will be simple, providing free legal and financial aid to elderly people, people who are being abused by their families, people who are being kicked out of their homes, people like I was. I looked at Emily. You will be the chairwoman of the board of that too. Then I looked back at Matthew. And you will be its first employee. Dad, he whispered, you will not be a manager. You will not be an executive. You will be a paralegal. You will answer the phones. You will file the paperwork. You will sit and listen to old scared people cry about how their children are robbing them blind. You will work 60 hours a week and you will earn minimum wage. And you will learn from the ground up what it means to help people, instead of robbing them. I stood there letting the wind whip at my jacket. And maybe, after a few years, maybe you will earn your way back. Not to the money, but to this family. That is your only path. You will start Monday. Matthew did not say anything. He just stood there, his body shaking with silent, heavy sobs. He did not make an excuse. He did not beg. He just nodded. Yes, sir, he choked out. Yes, sir. Thank you, Dad. Thank you. I put one arm around Emily and my other arm around my son. And the three of us stood there on that vast, empty land. It was not empty. It was full of promise. It was the future. I stood on the balcony of my new apartment. It was not a grand penthouse. It was a simple, clean, two-bedroom place overlooking the city. It was quiet. It was mine. The sun was setting, painting the Austin sky in shades of deep orange and purple. In my hand, I held the old cracked leather wallet. I pulled out my grandfather's laminated paper card. First National Merchants Bank. I thought about Cynthia. I heard she was living in a small rented apartment in San Antonio working as a cashier. She had lost everything she had schemed for. I thought about Rick sitting in a federal prison cell. He had lost his freedom. They thought they had taken everything from me. They thought they had left me to die in that miserable motel room, a broke, clueless old man. Cynthia and Rick thought they were ending my story. They did not know. They were just forcing me to find the real one. They took my $15 million company, and in doing so, they forced me to find a $173 million legacy. They took my past, and they forced me to build a future. They took my son, and they gave me the chance to save him. I looked at the old faded card. I thought about my grandfather Josiah, the man I barely knew. He had not just left me money. He had left me a purpose. He had left me a second chance. He had left me a dragon in a box and a story to tell. They thought they were burying me. They did not know I was a seed. My father's legacy was not the oil. It was not the money. It was the land. It was the sun. It was the idea that you endure. And my legacy, it was just beginning. If you are watching this and you feel like the world has thrown you away, if you feel underestimated, invisible, or betrayed by the very people you trusted, remember my story. People will mistake kindness for weakness. They will see gray hair and think it means a dull mind. They will try to take what you have built. Let them try. True worth is not in the money they can steal. It is in the character you have built. My father's kindness to a stranger 60 years ago was a promise. That promise outlived the man who made it. Rick and Cynthia built their lives on greed, and it collapsed like a house of cards. My grandfather built his on integrity, and it became a fortress that saved my life. Never let them break you. Never let them define your worth. Sometimes when they think they are burying you, they are just planting a seed. Thank you for listening to my story. Did you like it? And which city are you listening from? Let's meet in the comments. If you liked my story, you can support me by sending a super thanks so I can keep bringing more stories like this. I am really looking forward to your comments. Have you ever been underestimated by someone? What lesson did you teach them? On the screen, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend. There is so much more on my channel. Do not forget to subscribe. I will see you in the next life story. With love and respect.